We'll get you talking.
Let's talk to Ken Livingstone. He is, of course, former Mayor of London, now outcast from the Labour Party indefinitely, I think is the right phrase. Ken, a very good morning to you.
Hi there.
Now, I understand that as well as being on our very, very fine show this morning, you were on Russia Today over the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Were you? So you're not one of those who thinks they should shut it down then?
Well, absolutely not. I mean, if you look around the world, I mean, every sort of major TV organisation, whether it's the BBC here or ABC and NBC in America or RT in Russia, they broadly defend their country's interests and put their country's view forward.
Well, I've got Richard Angell here, Director of Progress. I think he wants
Ken,
to
that
say
is something else. Like that is RT in the UK is another level. It is propagating fake news. They're not the same as the BBC, who is a trusted institution and something that actually brings news to people who might not otherwise hear it.
Well, if you do as I do, I go on not just RT, I do Press TV, the Iranian.
That's the Iranian state broadcaster.
You have no standards,
which had its Ofcom licence pulled a few years ago.
Yeah, and completely wrong. Whenever I've been appearing on their programme, you get a different take and perspective on things. But you hear, and the last time I was on, a remarkable broadcast by the president of Iran reaching out to Israel, which no one would ever have thought. If all you rely on is the way it's depicted as a really brutal dictatorship in most of the media.
It is an awful dictatorship in Iran. The way they treat gay people. Ken, one of the few things you did well in your time in politics was lead the charge for gay rights, and then you go and take money off Press TV, which is which defends the government's appalling reputation on how it treats its domestic gay community. How can you do this?
You could say the same about Russia as well, couldn't you?
Exactly.
But if I'm in the situation where I'm being interviewed, I can defend lesbian and gay rights on any channel around the face of the world.
But your views on lesbian and gay rights aren't then broadcast to the people in Iran. You take their money to give them credibility when they're pumping out their propaganda here in the UK.
No, I mean, I go on anything that will give me a platform to say what I believe to be true.
Yes, but Ken,
so what did you say on?
I'm an apologist for the Iranian regime by saying that somehow you get your pro-gay rights agenda out on their channel, but it's not broadcast to the people in Iran. You don't give hope to LGBT people in Iran. You give them credibility when they're pumping out their propaganda here in the UK. Shame on you.
No. All I ever do is I say what I believe to be the truth. Is what I've done throughout my entire.
So what did you say on Russia Today over the weekend that you believe to be the truth?
The simple fact is it may well turn out to be true that Putin is behind these attempted murders, and that's deplorable, and we should pursue.
But you don't care as long as you get a platform.
Did you say that?
But yeah, I did.
So you believe, unlike Jeremy Corbyn, then that it is in fact down to the Kremlin that this has happened.
No, I'm saying it might turn out to be true. But I remember I grew up in that world of the Cold War. We're being told we were under threat by the Russians. And we now know that was all completely untrue. I mean,
Well, it wasn't untrue. It's just that they didn't fire any missiles at us. I mean, to be fair, there was a Cold War and we were under threat by the Russians. And there have been quite a few people killed as a result of that.
No, if you go down and look at all the documents that have been released in the United States of America and Britain, there were people inside the government in America in 1943 planning for a campaign against Russia because they were producing documents saying only one nation can dominate the world. It's got to be us. Can't be the Russians. And when Kennedy was elected president in 1960... When Kennedy was elected president in 1960, his campaign pledge was he'd close the missile gap with Russia. He gets his first briefing from the Pentagon. They say, well, Russia's got 4 nuclear missiles. We have 350. So someone running for president, a member of the Senate, isn't even aware of the truth. And yet we're all being told we're under a threat from the Soviet Union.
Okay,
so you're on the wrong side of it.
Let me ask you a slightly different question, Ken. When do you think you're going to be allowed back into the Labour Party? And if it's an indefinite ban, why don't you just form your own party?
No, seriously.
Funded by Russia Today and your Press TV earnings.
Yeah, there you go.
We have a long, drawn-out investigation going on into everything I've ever said.
Well, how long does that take, though?
Well, basically, the situation was that after 11 months, there was the 3-day hearing. All those charges, I'd said Hitler was a Zionist, that Jews are like Nazis, that it's not anti-Semitic hate the Jews.
Well, you said it more than once, didn't you? That's the problem. You kept repeating it.
But you've now got the situation where people say, I shouldn't have gone on Press TV, but people aren't being told that when I was on that Press TV programme, I was defending the Jewish community from the accusations that they'd exploited the Holocaust.
They didn't agree, though, did they?
Ken, the Jewish community do not want your help and support. You spent a career offending them.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, have Israeli television ever invited you on? Maybe you could say what you said on there, and maybe people might believe that you actually were interested in helping the Jewish community rather than basically throwing them under a bus.
I was on Israeli television when I visited Israel for about 10 days back in 1986.
Oh, yeah. Did you mention Hitler when you were on there?
Pardon?
Did you mention Hitler when you were on there?
No, I never mentioned Hitler.
Because you normally do mention Hitler whenever you're asked about the Jewish community, don't you?
Pardon?
You normally mention Hitler when you. That's what they get upset about.
I never have.
You never have? Oh, for God's sake, Ken. Ken, do go and have a lie down, mate. I tell you what, I think you've got a bit gaga, to be honest. Poor old Ken Livingstone is forgotten more than I remember about what he said and when he said it. Alexander Nikolاسov is here, and also we've got Peter Whittle who wants to say something as well. Alexander hasn't got a lot of time, though, so let me just ask you this. On the Russia Today thing, I mean, I don't get the sense that the British government is going to shut down Russia Today. I personally don't think they ought to. I don't think it would solve anything at all. All that would happen is that a load of diplomats journalists would be kicked out of Moscow. What's your view of Russia Today, and what's your view of what should happen to it from an émigré's point of view?
Well, I don't understand what the fuss is all about, because I don't consider Russia to be very effective.
No, I don't think so either.
I think they're not very good. I don't think they have a lot of audience here. And I personally don't watch it because, apart from, an occasional something, it's very boring.
It is.
I don't understand.
I actually put it on one night last week because of everything that was going on, and I watched it I had it on sort of in the background for a couple of hours. I didn't say anything particularly propaganda-like. It just wasn't, it was kind of like wallpaper. It wasn't particularly interesting.
But that's how they do it, isn't it? It's a kind of like they report 80% of the actual news they're doing, and then there's
I didn't actually. No, funnily enough, I didn't find anything particularly, off the scale of mad reporting it any differently from the way Sky or BBC was doing it. I don't know whether that was deliberate because it was last week. I don't know.
But I think it depends when it's happening, isn't it? It's not that they have times in which they therefore. They need the channel to kick in on behalf of the propaganda role, and then in between, it's a kind of like a sleeper cell. It does, behave like a normal channel, so people like Ken can justify taking their money and going on their show. But actually, when it then needs to serve the Russian state and the
you talk like a North Korean propagandist. You should listen to yourself. You sound like a North Korean propagandist. You even laugh like a hyena. The South Korean radio presenters do that. You should listen to people. You should stop making up allegations which are lies. You lie all the time.
Where?
Look at yourself in the mirror. You lie. Your face is distorted.
I think
from
the
lying.
irony is lost now. By the way.
Can I just say? Can I just actually say?
Peter, you've been on UKIP. You've been on Russia Today, haven't you?
Yeah, I was on that Sam Delaney program, which is what he also does a show here.
That's awful.
He used to, yeah.
Yeah,
awful.
Awful, yes. But
Sorry,
anyway, that's another thing. What I was just going to say there, listening to Ken Livingstone, right? And everyone's sort of like down, and quite rightly. But you've got to remember this guy and the sort of things that he has said, right? He was taken deadly seriously for about 20, 30 years in British politics.
Yep.
And I see this...
Not by me.
No, hang on. He was a major figure, right? Now, okay, everyone's sort of like laughing, whatever. The kind of things he said, you see now as well with Corbyn. Right? You see it with Corbyn. All the stuff you mentioned about Hitler and Ken and all the rest of it. There's a major problem now with anti-Semitism in the Labour Party.
There is.
Huge problem with it.
And
right?
partly
and
because
also,
they can't deal with Ken Livingstone properly, quickly, and what I would call
Get
surgically.
him out.
But also what it is that if you look at Corbyn, like behind this whole thing about the moment with Russia, is as well there is this kind of immediate instinctive siding with people who appear to be against Britain, right? That was the same with Ken. It was exactly the same. It was the IRA, it was Hezbollah, it was Hamas and these sort of people. Yeah. This is something that the Labour Party have really got to actually face up to and say, right, are we actually two parties? Is there this party and then maybe some other new party in the future?